Welcome to the Intentional Guy Podcast, where we are driven to help men become more intentional and purposeful in their daily lives. Your host, Michael Chestnut, will interview amazing guests to get insight and glean wisdom from, so we can integrate intentional living and lead happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. All right, let's get started with the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Intentional Guy Podcast. I'm Michael Chestnut. I'm your host here, and I'm excited about today because we're going to talk about a subject dear to me. As many of you, as my listeners know, I had a struggle with pornography that really tore down my world. I wrote a book 2 years ago called Expose that tells you the story of what happened and how God had restored me after 15 years. It was a 15-year journey of restoration. But it's also something that's really hard to share sometimes because it has such a stigma. People will look at you differently when you discuss that you have this. And today I'm bringing on here a special guest, J.K Emezi. And I believe I said it right.
You did.
J.K., thank you for coming on here. I saw J.K. and heard a little bit of the story, and I just wanted to have you on here because I wanted other people to hear this story, because I know that your story and my story are not unique to just us, that there are a lot of men and today women who struggle with this, not to mention, let's get to the demographics of kids and what age they're starting to see pornography at and everything. But I've shared my story on here before. You're actually my first guest who's really hit this subject hard on. Others have talked about their addictions. But, I really just kind of want to lay this over to you and let you introduce yourself and share your story with us and how you can help someone that's listening to us right now that is battling this in secret.
Thank you for having me on, Michael. I appreciate it. My name is J.K Emezi. I'm the founder of Elevated Recovery, and I am also the head coach at our signature system, which is called the Porn Reboot System. And we help men end their out-of-control behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation. But truth be told, our main focus is high-speed internet pornography. It's a growing problem. I remember, Michael, years ago, I've been doing this for 11 years now. I've been a coach for 11 years, and I struggled with this behavior for about 10 years. I remember when I started and my family heard what I was going to do, and my friends heard what I was going to do. They thought it was ridiculous. They were like, porn addiction? Like, that's not a thing. Isn't it a good thing if you're addicted to pornography? It means you have a healthy sex life. And it's interesting. It's very good to see so many men now aware of this, so many brothers stepping up and being called to the ministry to help men regain control of their sexual behavior and transform it into the right thing. Unfortunately, on the other hand, we have this giant that is the pornography addiction, that is the pornography industry, which is quickly becoming mainstream. I think, like, since the pandemic, it's become so mainstream. And I think for the listeners of this podcast, the listeners of my podcast, there are a lot of concerned men, there are a lot of concerned family members who are literally just seeing this stuff spill into our everyday life. It's not normal. But my story is being exposed to pornography at the age of 8. I'm 39 years old right now. So this was back way before the internet. But I had a nanny who was a family member that was taking care of I and my siblings. My parents were always off working, and I loved comics. I was a big comic book fan. And I saw her reading a comic book one day, and I'd read everything in the house, and she just wouldn't let me read this comic book. So, being a very determined child, I decided I was going to find this comic book. So I did. She had hid it under her bed, and when I opened it, it turned out to have a pornographic and very graphic storyline. I won't trigger anyone, so I won't mention anything about the details or the plots. But I was 8 years old. I did not have the capacity to be aroused. But I was raised in a Christian household, and I already knew this was naughty. So the moment I saw this, I was just like, mom and dad would get mad at me. This is the bad thing they don't let me see on TV. And within me, there was this chemical reaction that occurred. It wasn't arousal. I wasn't capable of that, but I knew it was bad. I knew it was taboo. But here's the interesting thing. I started to I enjoyed that feeling, that shock, that adrenaline of doing the wrong thing, of seeing what adults only should see. So it
Yeah.
became my secret. Unfortunately, from the age of 8 through the age of 13, every time that I experienced a strong emotion like fear or anger or sadness or insecurity or I missed my parents, I would go look for something with nudity because I wanted to feel that way. And the reason I'm sharing this story, it's how I got into this. But some of you listening to this may not know how you got addicted to pornography. Some of you have children. You may go, well, they can't get what? No, it is something that let me make this clear about pornography. If somebody who is not fully mentally developed, if somebody who is illiterate, if somebody speaks a different language, can look at it and immediately decipher what it is, regardless of their mental state, then it is not consensual. It means that it can change the way they think. It can change their neurochemistry without their consent. As far as I'm concerned, it is absolutely immoral and illegal to expose pornography to children, to expose children to pornography of any sort. I don't even want to, I could go on a rant on what's happening in society
Yeah.
today, but I won't. At the age of 13, when I hit puberty, finally it connected. The adrenaline was now connected to orgasm because I learned how to masturbate. And suddenly I was like, this is what you're supposed to get from naked images. And that's what my young 13-year-old brain understood. When you see naked images, when you see people having sex, it equates to pleasure. Nobody taught me about intimacy. I did not think about intimacy. I did not think about the connection between people. And throughout my teenage years, as you know, things happen to us as teenagers,
Right.
pornography became my main coping strategy. When I would deal with a breakup, when I felt I had too much acne, when I was insecure about my body, when all the boys in high school were more athletic than me, when I was bullied, I kept coming back to pornography. Now, being raised as a Christian is something important to talk about too. I think it is our parents, you know, they do the best they can. But sometimes
Right.
within the church, there's a lot of shame around around things like this. So I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew what I was doing was bad. And I was filled with this fear that I was going to go to hell. And no matter what I did and how much I tried to stop, I couldn't. So I had this deep fear within me and this deep shame. And eventually I came to hate myself. And you listening, you might hate yourself too. Because when you repeatedly tell yourself, what do you do, Michael, if somebody that's close to you keeps telling you, hey, I'm not going to do this to you again. I'm not going to make you feel shame. I'm not going to make you feel guilt. I promise you. I swear. Look, I'll swear in Jesus' name. You get on your knees and you pray. I will never do this again. And then a few hours later, you do it. The next day, you do it again. You're not going to like that person. In fact, you might end up hating that person.
Great
And
analogy.
many of us, Michael, are hating ourselves. We don't know why we hate ourselves. We don't know why we're living in isolation. We don't know why it's weird for us to be around other people socially. Well, you are uncomfortable with yourself. You have completely lost the ability to truly love yourself. And I lived this way all the way up till my 20s when I got to college. And that was when, moving away from mom and dad, that was when I went wild. Because the last boundaries that I had were released. So now I had access to high-speed internet pornography from my dorm in Wichita State University. I had access to alcohol, and there were women all around. Unfortunately, I wasn't any good with women, and this was because of my behavior with pornography. I did not know how to relate to women. And if you're listening, and you're just like, well, it's weird. I don't. All I knew how to do was ogle women, objectify women, lust after women. Why? because to me, women were just objects. That's all I'd done. They were objects for my entertainment,
Right.
for my enjoyment. And I'm going to pause here because I could go on, Michael. Do you have any questions
Right.
for me? This is where I'm at college. That was where I was. I realized that I had a full blown
No, I'm
pornography.
just soaking this in. I'm sure a lot of guys are identifying with exactly what you're saying here because, even though I've been very open about what happened to me, um, you're expressing things that I never related back to, because up until 2 years ago, once I finally got freedom and everything from everything, I I woke up every day telling myself I hate me. I
Mm,
I I hated who I was, and shame and guilt were my best friends. But I really liked how you an- did the analogy of, if someone continually tells you, "Hey, I'm not going to make you feel guilty. I'm not going to do this to you," but yet they continue the same habits over and over, you're not going to like that person very well.
mm-mm.
And you know, we, I have to know. Some people are sitting there going, "Wow, they're just focused in on what you're saying because you're hitting it dead on." So
Mm.
yeah, just keep going. Tell us some more.
Well, when you hate yourself and you've spent your entire teenage years, like almost a decade, hating yourself, um, when you're put around other people, you act in a very you act in a strange way. I felt I was weird in college. The truth is, I wasn't weird. I just hated myself. And so I did so many things to compensate for hating myself. And eventually, when I couldn't do it anymore, I just retreated. I just isolated. I called myself an introvert. But all I was doing was staying home, watching pornography. My my behavior escalated to the point that I decided that perhaps if I had a girlfriend and I was actually having sex, maybe this would stop.
Mhm.
So I went out there and I tried to get a girlfriend. And I couldn't speak to women because I was filled with shame. And if a woman rejected me or even looked at me the wrong way, my heart would shatter. I was so fragile. So I started drinking. I started going to bars. That was the only way I could talk to women. I would come back home late at night, frustrated, and watch even more pornography. At one point during my sophomore year, I started acting out. And what that meant was that I started looking for sex. I would watch pornography. Pornography prepped me for this. Then I would get on Craigslist back in the day
Yes.
when it had personals. Lots of guys are familiar with it, even though they don't talk about it. I would get on the personals and I'd be there till 2 a.m. looking for sex. Here's what happened the first time I actually tried to meet somebody. A woman, quote unquote, reached out to me and said that, hey, she's like, I'm on the other side of town. I'm babysitting and I'm alone. And the kids are going to be in bed and come over and have sex with me. So I'm there. I've had a few drinks. I've been watching some porn. I jump into my car and I drive. I head out there. I head out to the other side of town. And she tells me to park in this alley behind the house. I was saved that night because I kept my car in drive. Turns out there wasn't any woman. It was just a bunch of guys. It was a setup. I remember
Mhm.
sitting there with the car and drive. I remember the person texting me and said, "Hey, why are you leaving the car still running? Just put it in park." And I was like, "Yeah, just come out and show me where you're at." Even thinking about it right now, Michael,
Yeah.
as I share this story, I can feel how different I was. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment because when you act out and when you watch pornography, you are not you.
Yeah.
I am not J.K. and you are not Michael. It's almost as if we are possessed by something and we only come to when we orgasm.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that in a minute. And you can do all sorts of crazy things when your nerve system changes as a result of that arousal. These
Yes.
guys broke my window. I freaked out and I just gunned the accelerator. I drove through someone's yard, broke through two or three fences. My car was totaled, but it was still driving. And I remember vividly driving down the highway back home, shaking, my hands just gripping the steering wheel. I kept telling myself, I was like, JK, you were not raised this way. You were not raised this way. You were not raised this way. I was shaking from head to toe.
Yeah.
I was traumatized. I remember getting back and I swore. I was like, this is I could have died tonight. I could have ended up on the news tonight. Who knows what would have happened tonight? How
Yeah.
stupid. What is it that made me think a guy in college, an educated guy whose parents had sacrificed so much for him, how could I get to the point that at 3 a.m., I'm driving out to the middle of nowhere to meet a person I've never seen to have sex? How desperate had I become?
Yeah.
At that point, I was so low, I had to look up to see the bottom, Michael.
Hmm.
That was when I decided I was going to find a way to end this behavior. And that's how my journey to start seeking different methodologies began.
Yeah. Man, I wish I, you know, so there's one way that you know if you have a problem is if you find yourself in risky behavior, right?
Yep.
Right there. That's it. And that was me. And I was right there, like you said, exactly in there. But unfortunately for me, my world had to fall down. You know, I ended up with the FBI at my door over an
Yeah, man, you told
allegation.
me about that. What happened? Like it seems
It
like
just
what I was afraid of actually happened to you, man.
well because you know you're this is back when before Craigslist.
Okay.
Okay, this is back AOL,
Okay.
whatever. So
Yeah.
you're just chatting. I think it was Yahoo or something like that. And someone the only way you could get porn back then was you pornography was you paid for it,
Yeah.
you know. So it's not like a Google search today. This was
Yeah.
at the start of it. So people would send you pornography that
Mm,
you would talk, chat, whatever with it. Well, one of the men,
mm.
someone who I had chatted with, um, actually got picked up for pornography, for child pornography
Yeah.
somewhere. And so he made an accusation against me and a few other people that were on there that led the FBI to our door to do a screen on our computers, you know.
My God.
Although there was nothing there, now the whole world
New.
opens up because you just had a search warrant served on you. The FBI, let me tell you, the FBI at your door. And you would think that would be rock bottom for me, right? But but like you said, once that adrenaline kicks in and you get on the hunt for that pornography, your mind's gone. And my world fell apart. I lost my family. I lost my job. I lost everything. And I was in such a depression. I wanted to die and all this. But the only thing that ever made me feel good was pornography,
Mm.
was pornography, you know? And it took me a while, JK, to get to that. I had a desire in my heart
Mm.
and I write about it, but it took me a while. It took me, I lost everything and still was falling even further into pornography.
That's the insidious thing about this behavior is that you can lose everything to it. And when it becomes your main coping strategy, you will still go to it. And that's where the self hate and the self loathing really begins because you're now in an abusive relationship with yourself
Oh, yeah.
and you cannot escape you. You cannot.
And I
Right?
pushed God away so many times. I didn't have God to go to. I couldn't pray anymore. So my connection with God was gone. My connection with other people were gone because nobody really, the FBI was at his house.
Mm,
You know, where there's smoke, there must be fire, right? And so, you know, so I I was now isolated.
mm.
And that's the worst place to be in this thing because then all you got is pornography. That's where I found myself.
Oof. That is rough, man. That's rough.
Hopeless.
That's rough. You know, when I was at that rock bottom place and I started searching for a way to end this behavior, I mean, I tried everything. I tried everything. I even thought about castrating myself at one point. I got so low. I was just like, maybe if I cut it off, I'm gonna be good. I went to some really dark, crazy places. I want to commend you, first of all, Michael, for triumphing over that, especially when you lost everything to it. It takes a lot to come out and speak about it. And when I say it takes a lot to speak about it, I don't mean the courage to speak about it. There are lots of people who have the courage to speak about it. I mean the fact that you're speaking about it, knowing that you are not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand it. Any man who speaks about this or who's written a book, I'm just like, it's not that you wrote the book or you spoke about it. It's that deep down inside, you know you're not a perfect person. I think
Yeah.
it was Dr. Albert Ellis that said, you can recover from any addiction, but you cannot recover from being human.
Yes.
You know inside that you're imperfect, yet
Yeah.
you still went out and said, I'm going to share my story, knowing that I am far from perfect, that being healed doesn't mean, like you told me earlier before we started, like I'm not stupid. Just because I have this under control doesn't mean I'm incapable of sinking to those depths. And that's the hard thing, to stand up there and say, like, I can help you end this behavior. I'm going to share my story and inspire you. But y'all, I could be like you at any moment. That's the hard part, man.
And the hard part, I told you earlier, but the hard part for my listeners to understand
Mm,
too is when I found myself in this, I had never seen anybody
mm.
through the church or in life ever be restored from where I was. I, so the possibility of restoration and being free from this, I had no example before me
Mm.
to show me that. So in essence, I had no hope. I had no hope of recovery from this because it had never been modeled for me. And that was one reason why I think God had me write my book and has me doing and has you doing what you're doing,
Mhm.
is because at some point one of the things to me was God was like, this is your story. You can run from it, or you can help others. And I'm trying to be what I needed someone to be for me during that time that I didn't have.
Love it. And we need more men like you, Michael, out there doing this. When you speak about not seeing an example of restoration, I think there are several things to it. Firstly, there is so much shame, and it is such an isolating addiction that you don't even bother to look if there's somebody else, because you really think you're the only one struggling with it. You're like, I must be a weirdo, because it seems, and this is the crazy thing, it seems as if you're the only one in the world who can't control his sexual behavior. You're like, such a basic thing.
Yeah.
Like, why would I get addicted to pornography? Like, I'm ashamed to even tell another man. I think they would laugh at me.
And then you
And
feel like such a pervert because of it. You dare whisper it to someone that you have this problem, because how are you not going to be judged?
exactly.
Because truth be known, I would have judged somebody had I heard that about them and said, man, you know,
No, that's why I think you're doing an amazing thing, because not only did you have to overcome the stigma, but you had an additional stigma to overcome, which was being rated. You know,
yeah,
I didn't have any examples. I started working on myself. At what point I just decided that everything in my life was falling apart. Like the self hate and everything that pornography had done to me was preventing me from doing anything. I was already failing out of school. I couldn't hold a job. I couldn't be social because my head was on a swivel. Everywhere I went, I was undressing people with my eyes. It was compulsive. I just couldn't stop. It was crazy. I was like, I am not a normal person. I need to change my life. I couldn't hold a regular job. The only job I could hold was a job selling door to door. So I ended up becoming a door to door salesman. And I sold Bibles and encyclopedias and kids' textbooks door to door. I actually ended up doing that for 11 years. and I was gone and I was on the road. And that was where I actually started working on myself. I did that to pay my way through college. And in between, I would save up money. I tried 12 steps. I tried working with therapists. I went for all the woo-woo weird retreats with the deep breathing and all kinds of things and opening up and crying and all that stuff. All of them helped in their own way. Bit by bit, some of them allowed me to talk to other men, learn about accountability, become accountable. I saw people who dealt with trauma and who had dealt with abuse and a few other things, but still there was nothing specifically for pornography. I had to come up with a way to deal with it. And my way was very simple. Now, bear in mind, what I'm about to share with you is not something that I had as a system when I was ending this behavior.
Right.
See, I controlled the behavior for myself and I moved on. But one of the things that did not work for me was with 12-step groups and traditional therapy back then, there was a message that I was not comfortable with. Now, a lot of my current clients are in 12-step groups, are in SAA, are working with therapists, and they're doing well. Some of them, I encourage them to do that. I just want to make it clear. But personally, I could not reconcile with living with the fear of and without the clarity of what my life would be without this behavior. And I realized that if I did not define what freedom from this behavior was for me, then somebody else was going to define it for me.
True.
And if somebody else defined it for me, I would not be happy. What this means is that we are called porn reboots, not porn recovery. The reason we are called porn reboot is because the great thing about recovery is that it helps you recover that which you lost, right? You lost your family, you lost intimacy, you lost your connection to yourself, you lost your connection to God, you lost your identity in this behavior.
Yes.
But for some men, maybe for some of you listening, there's a problem. For some men, you may have been in this for so deep and for so long that you have no idea what there is to recover. If you spent your 20s and your 30s in this behavior and you're only just seeking freedom and you are trying to recover that which you lost, how do you know at 41, at 43, what your 29-year-old self would do? You don't know. The past is gone. But then so many people end up looking to their pastor, looking to their sponsor for what their life should have been. It is great to look up to mentors. It is great to follow what they teach. But you must define your life for yourself. Now, if you look at your mentor, your sponsor, your pastor, and that turns out to be a person who is not just inspirational, but aspirational. This is very important. You look at the person, you're like, they don't just talk a good talk. They live the life. I want to have the intimacy he has with his partner. I want to have the relationship he has with his children. I want to have the financial freedom he has. I want to have the self-discipline he has. I want to have the mission he has. Then that's fine. Recovery will work for you. But if you don't have an idea of what to recover, brother, you have to create it for yourself. And that's why we call it rebooting. You can hit the reset button. You can drop everything down, whether you're 45, 65, I don't care. My oldest client was 95 years old, and he was still a lecturer at a university, and he still ended his behavior before he passed. You can hit the reset button, and you can start all over again. It first starts with the right habits. And I want to make this clear. Anybody can change habits. There are a lot of people out there, coaches claiming to help you change your habits, replace one habit with a habit. Michael, you know it's not just changing habits. We've tried to change habits. That will not end the behavior. It is deeper.
Correct.
Once you have changed your habits, like what environment are you hanging out in, right? Where are you spending your time? What are your mental and thinking patterns? How do you think? Do you constantly have negative self-talk, self-criticism? Like, what's your diet like? Do you have other bad habits, other things, substances, food, sleeping in, laziness, gossiping? Do you have other habits that make you feel good that you use as a coping strategy? You got to change these habits first. That is only the foundation for the right lifestyle. Habits have to be built, and then you make them part of your lifestyle, which means you live it. You live it. How do you keep living that lifestyle? Well, you need accountability. You need to be
Yes.
around men. You need to show up and be like,
Yes.
yeah, like I was falling off. And guys, you keep doing it. As it becomes a lifestyle, you start filtering out the people in your life, and you only start spending time with people who are headed in the direction you want to head to. Why? Because if their lifestyle is not congruent with yours, you notice you're starting to go back to your behavior. Every time a client of mine starts slipping, we ask him, is it a boundary issue? Is it a self-care issue? And then we start finding out things. Oh, I stopped doing this and that. I started hanging out with these friends. I went back to my hometown. I was like, that's because it is comfortable to do that.
Yep.
But remember, all those comfortable things, some things which can seem so innocent. Like literally, there's some people, some of you listening, your parents trigger you.
Yep.
You go back and you spend way too much time with mom and dad, and you go back to those behaviors. And you're just like, how
Yeah.
did that help me send me back to pornography? Because the emotional trigger runs deep. Let it
Yep.
go.
Yep.
Change your lifestyle, but then you're not done. You have to live that lifestyle long enough till your self-image changes. If your self-image is still the same self-image of the person who used to watch pornography, I don't care how much your lifestyle changes. It is only a matter of time before you sabotage it. And many of our brothers, Michael, who are in 12-step groups, when you go there and you sit down and you see some brothers, you're just like, why is this brother still slipping and relapsing after all these years? It is because he got stuck in a lifestyle. And it's not his fault.
Yep.
Because there are not many sponsors, there are not many people who understand the self-image part, but they understand the lifestyle part. But
Yep.
they don't know how to take you beyond that. So what do? They tell you that you must use your willpower to stay within this lifestyle. And what I want to tell brothers is that whether you're in a 12-step group, doesn't matter who you're working with, you can make the choice to change your self-image. Why? Because that group you are in, those people you are spending time with, whether you're in a men's group, whatever it may be, as long as you have that accountability, you have the lifestyle part down.
Yep.
I want you to start looking at, what is my identity? Some
I
men
love
would see a wallet on the road and they would pick it up. And I'm assuming, Michael, you're the type of man who would look in, you'd see like, man, there's a lot of money in here. Who is this person? He must really need it.
Yes.
I need to find him. That's a lot of money. I would be freaking out if I lost it, that amount of money. So you go look for the person. There are some other people who would just pick it up and take the money. But
Yep.
when I ask, well, why would you do something like that, Michael? You'd say, well, that's just the right thing to do.
Right.
Because your self-image is the self-image of a person who does not take stuff. You don't steal. That is your self-image. It's not, you cannot argue about it. There is no debate. You don't even want to debate about it. I'm like, I don't want to have the conversation with you about why I should have taken money. It's just out of the question. Brothers, what if viewing pornography was just out of the question for you? What if you were stressed and angry and lonely and tired and hungry and whatever it was? And someone was just like, well, why don't you just watch porn and jerk off? You're just like, dude, this is not an option. Like, it's not an option. Can you imagine?
Yeah, and I love that you're going to the identity part of it, because a lot of men don't understand. We get to choose our identity. We get to choose and create that identity. I don't have to allow the worst moments in my life define who I am. The problem is we don't want to grow from those worst moments. And so I had to come to a point in my life where, what characteristics do I want?
Mm.
And I wrote them out. I wrote out, what are the characteristics that I want in my life? And then Craig Groeschel wrote this in his last book, and I've known this to be true because I had been living it. We are the sum of the 5 people we hang out with, that we associate closely with.
Absolutely.
And most people can't even tell you 5 people they hang out with. All right.
Yeah.
Relationships are so crucial. And I've sought out, and it changes because seasons change, people move, whatever. I'm very protective of, I know what characteristics I want, and I surround myself with like-minded men to help, because it's iron sharpens iron, right? And we're sharpening each other. So I'm going to hang around those people who are going to help me be a better father, a better husband, better man of God, a better employee, a better man of character,
Mm.
right? I get to choose who I hang out with. I get to make that choice. Therefore, I also get to choose who I'm going to be. I get to do that. That's why intentional is the name of the podcast, because I to do it though I have to be intentional. And a lot of people have just given up the fight, and they're allowing everything in their life to dictate who they are. Like they have no self-control over pornography, masturbation, the other things that we're talking about, because they've given up or they've had no hope, or they've gone to the wrong counselors. Oh my gosh, some of the counselors that are out there that is bizarre, and so um, I think you hit it right on the spot. You have to decide what is it, who is it that you want to be, what
Exactly.
is your what do you want your identity to be,
Mm.
and then you can start a strategy to becoming that man.
You nailed it. You nailed it. And I gotta say, um, when I saw your stuff pop up um in my Slack, my assistant had set it up. I was just like the intentional guy. I was like, I really like that because today, um, everybody's just floating through life, and with modern technology, we just get sucked in. Everybody gets sucked in. You just get on your phone and you get sucked into stuff. Then you're surprised. Oh, how did I end up on this porn site?
And all these
Oh,
algorithms are leading us instead of us leading
there's
life.
there's no intention. I tell my clients, your day slips away from you when you wake up in the morning without a plan.
Yeah.
You need an anchor. That anchor, whatever it is your lifeline. It's you need a way. It's intention, which saves you from being blown off course. It is intention that will bring you back when that ship going out into the day hits its storms. It is intention that brings you back. If not, before you know it, if I were to ask you where did 2 hours of your day go, you don't know. And for the brothers who struggle with an out of control behavior, you will always be blown off course towards the same thing,
Yeah.
pornography. Always. That's what it is for you. So
I
intention is
remember,
super important. You have a great mission, Michael.
well, thank you. I remember before the FBI came to my house, before
Mm,
my world fell apart. I remember the guilt and shame so bad on me about the pornography,
mhm.
and I was a minister. I was in ministry, and there was nowhere to go.
Mm.
There was no one I could talk to, and I want to put this out to you, J.K. There's someone listening right now that the FBI hasn't shut up at their door yet. The world hasn't fallen apart yet, but they're stuck. That unfortunately, some people go to a church where they know they can't go to their pastor about this because they're going to be judged and chastised.
Mm.
Let's just speak truth, okay?
Yep. Yeah.
And there's some guys that they can't go to their wife because they know that's going to crush their wife,
Mm.
and they seen and we know, as you're listening to this, we understand you can't help yourself. You don't want to do this, but after watching this podcast, you may just leave this podcast and go right to a pornography page
Mm.
for self gratification because you
Mm.
just can't help yourself.
Mm.
So, JK, for that guy that's right here, that's right there, what can you recommend for him right now to do in this moment to help himself to not to to start finding freedom?
The first thing is what we talked about, defining your reboot. For those of you who are in recovery, define your recovery for yourself. Set a North Star. Write down exactly what your life would look like without this and be realistic about it. Again, don't do some unintentional stuff like I will never lust after a woman again. I will never. These are impossible things, and you will set the bar so high, and I promise you, you will relapse. Be realistic and remember that you are human. You will fail, you will fall, but you do not have to live with this behavior. Define it for yourself. Also, remember that at the end of the day, I'm a coach. I've done this professionally for 11 years, but I'm not the expert at you. You are the best expert at yourself. What does that mean? It means that you do not have to be in one place forever. It means that if you apply yourself, if you stay intentional, if you go deep, you were designed to be able, you have every resource within you to heal yourself, but you cannot do it alone. So go with brothers, work with people, go the right way, learn from other people, and become the best expert at yourself. We have a lot of free resources. All these things I'm talking about, because Michael and I don't have all the time. If you're interested in learning more about how do you change your self-image, how do you implement these habits in your life, what are the right habits, or if you just need some hope, if you're just like, JK, where's a place I can go to hear you just yell at me and like get it into my head? Because even after listening to you today, man, I still went and watch porn, and I need to hear you saying this. Or you can go find my podcast. It's called the Porn Reboot Podcast. I've got about 500 episodes. You can also find me on YouTube. Just search for J.K Emezi. I think I got about 800 videos there. Or you can just Google me, J.K Emezi. And there's enough material there for you to listen to me saying something different just about your out of control behavior every single day for the next 2 years. You can listen to me say a different thing every day for the next 2 years, which is about the time it takes for you to rewire your brain and end your out of control behavior. No promises here of you can end this behavior in 90 days or anything. Brothers, I'm not one of those guys who tells you how easy this is. This is going to take work. You're going to have to change your life. You will fall many times, and it's okay. Here's the last thing I want to share before I go. I think one of the most devastating things for some brothers is not having the belief that they can be free of this. I know some of you have tried. I know some of you have gone to groups. I know some of you have prayed, and you're just like, but I just can't even go a week, man. I can't go a week without this. I really don't think I can control this. Let me say this to you. You don't have to be perfect, all right? When you slip or when you relapse, and just so you know the difference, a slip is unintentional, right? A slip is, and you might be going like, no, it's not intentional. Like I didn't accidentally end up on that website. Yes, you did. You need to accept that this behavior is out of your control. It is compulsive in the early days. I know you're aware, right? You're like, I'm going to the site, I'm typing it in. JK, how can you say that this is not in my control? At that moment, remember, you have done this thousands of times. Sometimes hundreds of thousands of times. You don't even know that. You've done this. You've had this thought. It's okay if you do that. But if you slip and relapse, you have two choices. You can beat yourself up. You can hate yourself. You can say, oh my God, JK, you did it again. You're so stupid. You're a failure. You're not cut out for this. Something's wrong with you. Other people can end it. You can't. Don't say that. Look at the data. Why did you do that? Start training yourself to look at the data. But JK, what do I do about all those feelings? Start being compassionate. Understand that whatever it was, and you will learn this on your own, but whatever it was that's causing you to view this behavior, it only started because that thing wanted to protect you. You did not have the coping strategy. You didn't know how to deal with these strong emotions, so all you had was porn. It didn't want to make you suffer. It wanted you. It wanted to protect you, but now it no longer serves you. And it's something that should be your slave that you've allowed to be a master over you. It's still trying to be the master.
Yeah.
But it has to be under your control. So be gentle, be compassionate. Understand it still wants to say in your life. So when you slip and relapse, be gentle on yourself, but understand why. Was it my self-care? Was I too tired? Was it a boundary I crossed? And write this down. Keep track of it. And over time, you will have absolute clarity. And here's the thing. There are only about maybe 4 or 5 reasons why you end up watching pornography. You'll find out what they are for you. And it's so easy. For some of you, it's just two things or one thing. Some of you know the exact time you engage in this behavior, and all you need is a boundary long enough. And this is how you begin the journey to freedom. By not feeding those negative emotions that come up each time you slip. Stop feeding it.
Yeah. And if
Michael, I appreciate you having me. I'm out of time though.
Hey, thank you, man. I mean, the only way we can fight this is by being intentional. You've got to do it. J.K., thank you so much for being on our show. I hope I can have you back again because this is just so powerful. But thank you. I'll make sure in their descriptions we have everywhere where everybody can go. But it was an honor to have you on our show today. Thank you so much. And to my listeners out there, I want you to know, if this is a struggle for you, contact me. Contact us. Let us know. You're not alone. You're not a pervert. And guess what? God loves you. And there is a way out. There is freedom. And until next time, just keep being intentional. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Intentional Guy Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and got some real value out of it. Tell others what you learned and share the podcast if you think they would benefit from it too. Please follow us on your favorite podcast platform, leave a review, and consider checking out our website, intentionalguy.org, to learn more about us and get in touch. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.